Hi everyone, hope you all are doing really well, and this is the requested review on manual testing interview question part 2. I think the one is being really helpful. So I have a part 3 as well, and based on the response I'll make the part 3 because there are a lot of questions based on manual testing. So yeah, okay. So let's go ahead with the very first question. What we have it is like, what is the difference between equivalence partning and the boundary value analysis? So this is like we will be doing why we will be learning this pattern of testing because these are the things which we do it in our day-to-day life, like when we get the requirements. So we will be doing equivalence partning, boundary value analysis. So these are the things we will be boundary value analysis. We will be definitely gonna test. Let's say we can have the values of till 10 and from where it will take. So we will be increasing the values and see like if it is taking 11 or not, or till 9, how it is like 9. Like we cannot test, like let's say we have 100. We can the thing is we can check the 100. We will test 99 or maybe 101. So we will be we will be doing analysis based on boundaries. And so that's how we will be testing. So equivalence partning divide the data into partitions known as equivalence classes in such a way that all the members of the given partitions are expected to be processed in the same way to the partning we will be doing. So boundary value analysis is an extension of equivalence partning, but can only be used when the partition is order consists of numeric or sequential data. The minimum and the maximum value, as I said, of the partitions are at its boundaries. So behavior in the boundaries of equivalent partitions is mostly like to be incorrect than behavior within the partitions. So there are a lot of things we will be doing. So we are not naming them that this is what equivalent partning we are doing here. We are doing the combinations of testings, and we will be using this kind of these phenomenal stuff used in testings, and we use these concepts over a process in the testing. We particularly not name them because we combine all those processes we do while we testing. We use these strategies to test in applications, and these are the strategies we should be knowing because that's determine us that how as a testers we're going to test an application. So we should be knowing right first, then we can apply those tactics into our testing process. So what is the requirement traceability metric? So you might have heard these terms when you do extensive manual testing in your organization. So I think one of the organizations which I know that Deloitte is, they are asking requirement traceability metrics, and you should be knowing what all you can do it, what you can have it. You can have the pointers of requirement because that requirement traceability metrics has a big definitions of it. You can have a pointers of it, and most important point is 100% coverage. So you can have the coverage because it's a metrics wherein you will just tick some of the checkbox wherein which has to be required to cover your requirements. So whatever requirement has been given, so those are the checklist wherein you will be having. You can have you can measure how much requirement has been covered. So based on the checklist you have it. So the things that test cases has to be covered each and every acceptance criteria wherein you have all the boundary. You have done the all boundary value analysis, and you cover all your test cases where you find the bugs with those test cases, and a requirement has been covered and developed based on your test cases. So these are things we will be doing. So as well, you requirement traceability metrics as it will come in that perspective. And mainly I think there's a tool called ALM wherein you can design the requirement traceability metrics from your test plan and everything. So you can have that metrics ready, metrics as in graph or the dashboard you can see. So requirement traceability is the ability to connect requirements to the other artifacts such as different types of software tests or bugs. It is used to track the requirements and prove the requirements have been fulfilled. So bidirectional traceability is the ability to trace a forward example from requirement to test cases and the backward from test cases to requirement, as I said. So requirement traceability matrix is a document that maps and traces user requirement to the test cases, and it captures all the requirement proposed by the client and requirement traceability in a single document. And the requirements in a traceability in a single document. Okay, the main purpose of requirement traceability metric is to validate that all requirements are checked via test cases such as new functionalities unchecked during software testing. So that's how we will be doing, so that none of the functionalities are covered or may be developed. So what happens is in TDD process, we write the test cases and developer also sees that those test cases has to be passed before they put it into any other high environment. So they will be also developing the code to pass those test cases. So that's how requirement traceability comes in, and there's a lot of involvement of POs, testers, and developers as well, because testers write the test cases and then developers and the PO review it. So once they confirm, okay, that your test cases may have covered all the requirements and stuff like that. So then there's a lot of involvement behind in the team, and the test cases are playing a very important role in terms of requirement based metrics. What is the use case testing? So many of the time you have heard use case, and the test case. What is use case testing in our system? So use case is a description of particular use of the system by an actor, a user of the system, right? Each use case describes the interaction that actor has with the system in order to achieve the specific task, or at least produce some specific or something value to the user. Actors are generally people, but they may also be other systems, right? Use case testing is a technique that helps us to identify test cases that exercise the whole system on the transaction by transaction basis from start to finish. For example, we'll be having a scenario, right? So we can have one use cases for that. So for example, local user, we have it, and then I have the step one login. Then login will be like, login will be the scenario, right? So scenario we save, so it can be use case also. So user, in the login, you'll be having username, get local IP address, make a default chat room, the SAP to connect remote system. Then we can have the enter remote, get remote. So these are the test cases for these we will be having. So like this, it will be you can have the snapshot of it and have it take a clear picture. So you can have a pause and do it and understand this thing. I think this is a very good thing which people can understand, that the local user, how there are different scenarios and the use cases can be. So that's how it is. So you can, there are different ways of login and how you can do that. So yeah. So what is difference between dynamic and static testing? So dynamic testing involves the execution of the component or the system being tested. Dynamic or static, as the word says, the static testing does not involve the executions of the component or system being tested. It relies on the manual examinations of the work products or a tool-driven evaluations of the code in the work product, static analysis. So there are two things. So without the code executions is static testing. With code executions is dynamic testing. So following checklist or a process when you do the static testing for verification purpose only. And when you do dynamic, you'll be doing verification as well, the validation. So these are the two differences which you really need to do. That might be written in the very small, but these are the lines are very important. So when people ask you static testing and a dynamic testing, you will be having, so this is for verification only, and dynamic testing for verification or validations. Okay, when you're running the test cases, and then static testing, you will be following a checklist or a process. So what is the test plan and what is the information that should be covered in it? Okay, so test plan, what is the test plan, right? So we always write a test plan, or many people write. So in our project, maybe test lead or test manager will write the test plan. Okay, so a document that describes the scope, approach, resource, schedule of intended test activities. It defines, among other test items, the features to be tested, the testing task, who will do each task, degree of a tester independence, the test environment, the test design techniques and entry exit criteria to be used, and the rationale for their choice, and any risk requiring contingency planning. It is a record of test planning process. As the project and the test planning progress, more information becomes available and more detail can be included in the test plan. Test planning is a continuous activity and is performed throughout the product life cycle. There are master test plan, there are phase test plan. A test plan that typically address multiple test level, and a test plan that typically address one test phase. So I think test plan is a very important thing when we say and describe the scope, approach, resources, schedule of intended activities. So many people confuse with the test plan that they will be only having the test cases and that has to be covered in that way. It has to be covered. It does not have the complete test plan. So that's the reason we do test plan. When we do it in a project, when a service is a project, when the project comes up for a specific period of a time, and then we develop some functionality like 2-3 months, we're gonna develop this functionality and then do. So there's a specific thing that's being done. But we can work on sprint wise, right? So this test plan thing will be getting, you really have to cover this test plan and we need really a person wherein to define the scope, approaches, resources, and the schedule of intending. So there are a lot of activities has to be done by team lead or whoever leading the team or the project, and that has to be done. And the features has to be tested and how has to be done. There are a lot of things. So just read it out and figure it out what has to be done. So what is the difference between test progress report and test summary report? So there's one thing, the test progress report and the report. So the purpose of test reporting is to summarize and communicate test activity information both during and at the end of the test activity. The test report prepared during a test activity may be referred to as a test progress report, while a test report prepared at the end of the test activity may be referred as a test summary report. These are the two differences, because many of the people ask what are our deliverables. So when you say test progress report, and there's a test summary report. So what is this? What are the artifacts? So these are the things they wanted to listen from you guys. If you don't say, the question will not come. So you will be saying in your interview, so what are your test artifacts and after your test activity? So these are the things, the test progress report and the test summary report you will be producing. And what all these? You really need to tell them. So the test report contains change based on the context of the project and the audience of the report, right? Okay, this is the managerial based question has been come, which states to test your test. Okay, this is the very common mistake in the managerial question as well, and you really have to answer in a way. And then have put in some point in me. I'll be giving you some tips as well while answering. Failure to communicate. So many a times we happens to communicate. We didn't communicate well to ask more requirement clarifications from the developers as well, or you can ask the developers and maybe not developers, you can ask PO and clear every huge requirement. We hesitate to ask more questions at times, and we take times to understand what exactly the requirement is because of the lot of stress we have it in a day-to-day thing and a lot of activities we are involving in. So we might have that gap in it. So we just, we just see the failure to communicate, being afraid of asking questions. Begin testing before understanding the scope at the requirement. We start testing it because every sprint finishes and there are a lot of work activity that has to be completed in a particular day in a schedule, and we tend to rush down, right? Writing poor defect reports, missing some requirements while writing the test cases, not having any type of planning, false positive and next false negative. So these are the things we do such things because there are a lot of a lack of interactions between POs and the stakeholders, what we have it into our systems, and nobody contributes. So we also think like, okay, this is like this. We also don't like to ask questions, and we get afraid of asking questions because we doubt our abilities, and we don't understand in one go while developers is understanding in one go why we cannot. So these are the questions we discuss self-doubt we don't have. So I think that is something which we really has to be, we should confidence. What we should do about it is like we should really have a confidence in ourselves, and we should believe in ourselves that okay, if I'm asking this question and make sure that I may understand it thoroughly and put my focus on understanding, and I'll do my homework as well when I'm asking questions, and my question should be obvious, and I should not go and ask them which question just give me some lame responses and then I'll have self-doubt. So you should be having some we should be doing great from your end if you think so. And you should try to communicate, build your confidence that yes, this is a question, this is a meaningful question you're asking, and and think about it and do some exploratory testing and understand what it is, why it is, and then ask questions and have a clear understanding, and then prepare a good document. Invest your time in writing the test cases and get it reviewed by your peer reviewer and maybe from your PO as well. And then you can have a good defect report. You can work on the creating a great matrix defect bug we say defect matrix and good defect matrix, and create a defect which give you a good coverage of the requirements. And yes, write a requirement traceability matrix and write a code wherein your test cases will fit in with the requirement traceability matrix, and have a checklist and follow the requirement traceability checklist, and have a proper planning with your peers, with your seniors, and discuss with them. Communicate with them. If you think that meeting is required, have a meeting, discuss with them, have the clarity before starting anything. And I think a lot of things you can do it, right? You can learn from your mistakes. That's how you have to answer. If we reported a defect to a developer and he rejected, what shall you do? Okay, first, I think you shouldn't take it personally. Then many times it happens with me also. I was my developers will also take it personally, and I also take it personally when it comes to defects, because in a service way, developers will not take your defects. Okay, so communicate with him. Show an example. Return to the work product, SRS product backlog. Ask the product owner. Check the test environments. Repeat this in different environments. Escalate the issues. And I said that it's not defect. So what happens is you have to check in different environments as well. If it is in a different environment, bugs, and see it, and whether you really have to have the proof wherein your requirement document is approved. If you think that functionality is not working as per your expectation, that doesn't mean anything in the software world. You should follow the software document what client want you to have. So if you're following the correct thing and you are testing as per the requirements, and if it is not working as per the requirement, then it's a bug. So right. So if it is a bug, then you should adhere and stick to it. You should believe in yourself first, and then get in confidence of a product owner, or maybe your product owner, and get the discussions with them. You can have the screenshot of your SRS product, like whatever the requirement document you have it. What you can properly mention the steps, each and every steps wherein you can replicate, where other person can replicate the same issues everywhere, and have a snapshot of that issues, and make sure you can check the backend as well, what is happening in the backend. Maybe it is not producing it into UI itself. And then second thing is, if you really think you can check it in different environments. If it is there in the different environments, so you have the UAT and the test 2, or maybe QA environment or the staging environment, you can test it if it is a regression bug. And then, so what else? If it is not a bug, and if you're seeing it is only happening because it's happening good in the backend, but not producing because of some environmental issues in the for time being, there's an environmental issues, and there is a only for that time it is occur, and next time it is not coming, then you can accept it. It's not a bug. That's fine. Okay. What is the difference between a mistake, defect, and a failure? Okay. A person can make an error which can lead to the introduction of a defect in a software, code, or in some other related work. An error that leads to the introduction of a defect in one work product can trigger an error that leads to the introduction of a defect in a related work product. For example, a requirement annotations errors can lead to requirement defects, which then result a programming error that leads to the defect in the code. The defect in the code is executed. This may cause failure, but not necessarily in non-certain cases. For example, some defects require very specific inputs or preconditions to trigger a failure, which may occur rarely, right? So I think this is very important to understand and read it and understand. It's easy stuff. What are the most important components of a defect report? The title, steps to reproduce, because you have to mention the exact a process to replicate them. Okay? Otherwise, it is very difficult for them to replicate if one step is not mentioned. Expected result, actual result, priorities, and screenshots or a video. So priority you have to mention whether it is critical, medium, or low. That is very important to, as a defect perspective, you really need to have the priority set. What is risk-based testing? RBT is a software testing type which is based on the probability of risk. It involves assessing the risk based on software complexity, critical of business, frequency of use, possible areas with defect, etc. Risk-based testing prioritizes testing of features and the functions of the software applications which are more impactful and likely to have defects. Risk-based testing steps are identify the risk, analysis the risk, prioritize the risk, and mitigate risk. So I think risk-based testing we always do it. Okay, when we have the it involves like risk based on the software complexity, critical of business, frequency of use, and possible areas with defects, etc. So we will be doing that. We really have to prioritize the features and the functions of the software applications, right, which are more impactful. Right, many times home page and some order page will definitely gonna say, like, for example, the e-commerce application. So your checkout page will be mostly used, and right, most of the time people will add to cart and now check it out, but in the sales times they mostly use those checkout page and all those. That's a very impactful page, and your home page especially. So those are the very impactful and likely to have more defects in that area because a lot of people are hitting it at the same time. So I think there the risk is involved very high, and where the highest risk is the risk. So maybe in the many of the sections of the product which really have the low, like accessories, this lots of, like if you go to Myntra, most of the people buy accessories like the makeup products. Also, they don't buy it as such. They buy, it's mainly clothing brand, right? So mainly most of the people will buy the clothing from Myntra, or right, as per I know. And so that's how it is. Like the checkout page and the home page are the mainly used page. So maybe it will be high. You really have to have, very impactful functions of the software applications, right? Those are the, UI applications. So what is the difference between alpha testing and beta testing? So alpha testing and beta testing are typically used by developers of commercial off-shelf software who want to get feedback from potentials or existing users, right? Customers or operators before the software product is put out to the market, right? So you might have heard like alpha, beta, and then release testing, right? So these are the testing. Alpha testing is performed at the developing organization side, not with the development team, but by potentials of the existing customers or the operators or an independent testing, right? Those people will do independent testing, will test. Beta testing is performed at the potential or existing. Beta testing, like customer will be testing or operators at their own locations. Beta testing can come after alpha testing or may occur without any preceding alpha testing having occurred. Okay. So beta testing, maybe we will be giving, like for example, in the fest, you might have some of the applications there, and a lot of them, if you go in the technical fest, they will be doing some beta testing with the real-time users and have their, like, they get some bugs and then fix it and then only release it. So that's how they'll do it. They develop some kind of machines or maybe drone or something like that, like photos or cameras or something like they've developed that they wanted to do some beta testing, some kind of customers they wanted to test it and see how their product respond and what kind of bugs they have it, and how user take it, and what kind of feedbacks they got, and then they're gonna work on their feedbacks and improve the applications or whatever it is. So that's how they do it. Into, like, you might, if you've been on any of the technical fest, you have that thing. So it's a real time example of beta testing, and that's how it is happening in the organizational world. What is the benefits of test independence? Benefits of test independence include are likely to recognize different kind of failures compared to developers because of different backgrounds, technical perspective, and biases. So there's no, if you belongs to one team and there are a lot of biases that happens and people take the advantage, a lot of people will take the advantage of it, and at the end tester is gonna suffer. So when you have the individual testing team, you have individual managers, you have an individual, everything individually you'll be doing. You have everything you'll be reporting it through. So it's create a visibility of your work, right? So an independent tester can verify, challenge, or disapprove assumptions made by stakeholders during the specifications and implementation, because that gives them the ability to speak out in front of everyone. So when you have the independence to speak out, and that gives you confidence, and this is how it should work. And you work as a team, we tend to get some biases from developers and a lot of stakeholders. So that's how it happens. So, and tester will be like the based on their what we say competencies. They will be always treating in a less importance, and that's how it happens when you have an individual testing team, and so that people will really hear you out when you say, and instead of playing the blaming game, I think that will really help you out in that per se. Independent testers of a vendor can report in a upright and objective manner about a system under test without politically pressures of the company that hired them, right? So I think this is very important. What is difference between defect priority and severity? Give example. So I think this question has been asked many of times. So defect priority is the order in which defect should be fixed. Higher the priority, the sooner the defect should be resolved. Defect severity is a degree of impact or a defect has on the software application, AFG. And higher effect of the bug defect on the system functionality will lead to the higher severity level. So order of priority, high priority, high severity, high priority, low severity, low priority, high severity, low. These are the combination, low priority, low severity. So these are the very good examples. So when we have high priority and high severity, Submit button is not working on the login page. Customer are unable to log into the application. So it is very high priority and the high severity that has to be fixed. Because once if they are not fit to log, it is a very critical functionality, right? So when you see that there's a critical functionality comes in, so that is like high priority and high um, severity as well. Okay, people can they have to fix it immediately, right? So for you, it is like high priority. Okay, low priority and high severity. Crash in some functionality which is going to deliver after a couple of releases, but it's a crash, right? If the functionality is not working at all. They really have to work on that functionality. So the crashing it may affect the other functionality as well. So this is high severity for them. But for us, it's fine because it may come later also. So it's not for us. It's not a priority. So okay, for tester it is a priority, for developer is a severity. Okay. So high priority and low severity, spelling mistake of a company name in the home page. So that is for the testing purpose. This is very high priority because that is the first impression, right? And they can fix it on later as well because it's a very less amount of time they will be taking the fixes. So low priority and low severities. FAQ page takes a long time to load, right? So, like a lot of the people will depends on the FAQ page. For example, if you have some applications where FAQ page is not at all impacted. For example, currently I'm working on some application wherein FAQ page is very important because a lot of the people will see how the different kind of functionality works, what pattern. So that page is very critical for us. For us, it's very if that breaks, that is a high priority, and for us, it depends on the application also. So you really need to find it out, which is very critical, and as a tester perceptions, what has to be very high priority and low priority. But if you wanted to give the in an interview, this question is surely asked. This question is definitely gonna ask you, and people will definitely gonna ask you this question. So this is like very important question. You really need to know, and you really need to have a clear understanding of this. Otherwise, some people will give you the example also, which will, like for example, tell me if this bug is a high priority or a high severity or low priority or high severity. So you really need to know analysis you really have to done it so that in real time you can answer them. So thank you guys. I'm really sorry that I was late in this video because I do have a bad throat infection, so I was not able to record it out, and I tried my best in recording it out, and I hope this will help you out. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe to my channel and do like, share, and comment. Thank you.